Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. I hope you brought your coffee. We're going to have to be a little bit here. So, today we're going to talk about a donkey's ear. I'm going to try to show you how I attach one to my miter gauge and how we can make it work. In fact, we're going to take and cut 4 sides of a box using our donkey's ear so you can see how to actually use it and how easy it is to use it on your miter gauge. So, let's take a look at what is a donkey's ear. Well, if you're new to the channel, if you do a search on donkey's ear on my channel, this thing will pop up. And I've used it on several different places. That's one thing I like about it, is that it's very versatile. I can use it on the miter saw, the table saw, the dado stack. I could use it on my drill press or the bandsaw. So it has a lot of uses in different places, and it's served me well since I made this a couple years ago. But on here, I try to use it, and it works. It works fine, but it just seems to be bulky. So I decided, you know what? I think I'd like to have something like this, but not so bulky. So I made this little brother. And this is a baby donkey's ear. And it, quite frankly, it just goes on to the front slide and just slides in place. And you have your 90 degree here and your 45 degree here. So if I wanted to use my 45, I can do 45 cuts by putting my pieces on here like this and running them through the saw. We'll get into that in detail here in a moment. But it can be used as a stop. I can also put a piece on here and cut a tenon if I want to. So this thing has a lot of nice little uses. Plus, if I have a long piece that I want to rip, I could set this up, tie it down, and I could actually even perform a nice little quick rip cut using this on small pieces. So it has a lot of uses. Also, real quick so you see, now pay attention, if you want this to be on that side of the blade instead, then just take it out to the end, flip it, and bring it over, and now you get it to the other side. You say, oh wait, no, I wanted to use the 45 on this side. Oh, okay. There, now we got the 45. Set it up where you want it. Tighten it down with the one screw. Make sure you're pushing straight down against the table to hold it nice and flat, and let this pull it to your fence. And just snug that down, and it's now set, ready to go. And I might add, it's square here, it's square this way, this is square this way, all along here to the surface, if you can see that. So this surface is square here, so this sets in there nice and flat against the fence and against here. And oops. And it's exactly 45 degrees here. So, but I do like the way this is arranged and the way this works. It's a nice size. And since I do a lot, when I'm using this, I'm actually probably usually working on some smaller pieces type of thing. I'm not working on a big 2x4, 2.5 feet long. So this is a perfect size for on the miter gauge. Now again, I can use my big one if I'm doing something really big. I can grab it, set it up, and clamp it down and use it. I've done that. But for most daily work, this I think is going to work out much, much better. Now, the size of it. It's just a basic triangle. I took 3 pieces of, and this is just that press board, cabinet grade. It's a real nice flat surface. And I made 2 pieces that were 4 3/4 inches long, and mitered it on both sides on these 2 pieces and glued them together at one of the miters, making sure that I'm dead on to 90 degrees once the glue sets. Once I've done that, then I take another piece and set it across. Set it up like this. My 45s here are lining up so I can take the next piece and put it on there, glue that all together, and then cut it off appropriately in line with my, in line with my 45, I would cut it off then. So in other words, it would set like that. So this piece down here is the piece that's going this way. And then you get a nice solid block. Sand it down, plane it down, whatever you have to do to make sure that you are absolutely square, no matter which direction. I put this in and check it. It's square. It's square. I know it's square there, and I know it's square there. And I also know that it's square this way. So I know that I am nice and square right here to go square against my tabletop and here when I put it in place. And it's just the right size for most of the things that I would do when you're working on smaller pieces. So let's see how to use this thing real quick. Just for fun, let me show you how you can cut a quick 45. We'll do it with this. And then we'll take and cut a piece of wood down, and we'll make 4 sides that we can glue, that we'll be able to glue up to make a square box. And I'll show you how easy that is to do. So if I take this now, and first thing we want to do is I want to set it up to where it's zeroed out, so that when this piece is laying on here, you want that blade to go through this corner here, but stay on the side of the cutoff side. Leave the crisp corner exactly. So if I put this down right like this and lean it over against it like that, this is set right where I would want it. Now then, as far as where I would have it, now I'm holding those 2 pieces together so they don't move. And what we're going to do is raise our blade up. Well, actually, to cut this, we have to do the setup. So to do the setup, I have a block here that I have a 45 on. That's an exact 45. And it's the same thickness as that. If I needed to, I would cut a test piece real quick that's the right thickness. Because you want to make sure when you set this up that you hit that piece right there, because this can't be moved. And obviously you can't index it onto here, because I might slide this one direction or another or put it on the other side. So you just want to dial it in. It only takes you a second with a known 45. I will set that in there against the fence and let it gently touch to the bottom. Let's do this. Let's do it on this side so that you can kind of see what I'm doing better. So I will put it on here. I raise my blade up. Let me move this out of the way. And now I want to make it loose enough that I can move it like this while it's touching. Now that I'm ready to move in, I want these 2 pieces to not move from each other, so I have it pinched in here with my hand. Bring it up. Get it close to one of my teeth. That is the offset for my, because I'm setting, right now I'm going to set my 0.0 on this. So I bring it up until this surface is just barely against there. And I'm just going to snug this down. Like so. And this is now ready to go for using it. Now, when I'm going to cut a piece like this, you have to also watch out that it doesn't ride up on you like that in the gap in here, or it'll throw your angle off big time. So, in order to make sure this stays right where it's supposed to during the cut, I cut it to length, whatever length I want it to be. And right now, just so you know, this piece is exactly 5.5 inches and about a 32nd of an inch over. So I'm going to put that, remember that number. So if I bring this in here now, I know that my 0.0 is just on that side of this blade here. So now I want it to be able to put a piece in there and have it not move. So I'm going to bring in my stop block from the other direction. And while I'm holding this still, I just gently bring this up with one finger till it touches. Once I know it's touching, then I pinch it right here and I snug this down so that it will not move. Now I have a cradle right there for my block. So if we want to miter this on both ends, I would drop it in. I'm going to turn on the saw and make this cut on both ends. And just that quick and easy. And I'm just going to hold this. My main concentration is not to hold it against the fence, but to hold it against the sandpaper here. Because if I'm holding this down against here, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm holding it well above my blade. And here we go. There's that one. Turn it around. Pinch it. And just like that, a 45. So now the question is that a 45? Well, we know it fits there just perfect. We'll take a known 45. And I'd say that's a pretty good fit there. Or I could put it together like this and check it for square this way. So, and if I want to do that, let's do that real quick here. So I'm going to bring my fence over 90. So if I put this one this way and then slide this one in, I'm getting a nice clean cut with no gap. So I can make a perfect box right here in the corner real quick if I had 4 of them. So let's do that. Just for grins, let's cut this into 4 pieces. I have pre-measured it, and I can cut a 5 and 3.5 inch piece out of this and get 4 pieces out of it. One side of the box will be 5 inches, one side will be 3.5. So let's set up and do these cuts and make this into a box. Oh, one more thing. If I take this and measure this, oh, did I get the right one? And this still measures identical to what it was. So, if you do this and you have that cradled, when you make that cut and you flip it, if you pre-cut this to your predetermined length, then you're not going to change this length at all. As long as you have that set up where when that comes through, it leaves that edge like that. So the real critical part is to get this set exactly right. And that's where this 45 helps me to be able to set this up by bringing it up to my blade and actually setting it, making clean contact right on the tooth like that. And that tells me that as long as this material and this material are the same thickness, I can do that. If I was using something thinner, I would do a quick cut to make a 45 on it. Then I would use that to adjust this to where it's just barely touching it, so that I know that the point is not going to get cut off of my miter when I cut that 45. So it's pretty easy to set this up. I figured it out. You have to play with it for a day or so, maybe yourself, to really get the feel for it. But once you really get using it, it really is pretty easy to use. And you could actually set something like this up and use it on a sled if you wanted to. But this is a nice little addition. This little baby donkey's ear is a nice little addition to this miter gauge fence. I really like it. I can use this to do the tenons. So if I wanted to, I could set a board up this way, and I'll set my Incra jig up here in a minute, show you how I can set it up and use it in conjunction with this here to adjust this, to use it as a stop in order to make cuts. So, But if you, like I said, you can also do tenons. So right now, let's set this up so that we can cut this board up. First thing we need to do, let me take this out of the way. And the first thing we're going to want to do is to cut this board into 5-inch and 3.5-inch pieces. 5, 3.5, 5, 3.5, so that the grain will all line up. And so, just for grins, I'm going to mark it 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that we can keep it straight. So this way, you actually can match a 3-corner grain then instantly too. So we're going to set this up to 5 inches. So I'm going to bring this up and set this to right at 5 inches. Close enough. And I'm going to lock this down. So now let's do our cuts so that we can have these cut to length. So let me set my height. We don't need it to be too high. And let's cut these pieces out. I think first we'll do a quick cleanup to make sure it's square. One. I'm going to use my magic square, 1.5 inches. 2. 3. 4. They're identical. And they're identical. So now, let's take our donkey ear. Take our known 45. And let's set this and tighten it down. Okay? And now, that's a nice clean 45. Now I'm going to also bring this over. Whoops. Let me use this end. Bring this over. Touch it. Now that I'm touching, I'm going to tighten this down. And I'm ready to cut these. So let's raise our blade up. And let's see if we can do this. It's important that all your pressure is pushing it straight into here. That's the pressure you want. Because if you're holding that end against there, that's not going to move anywhere because this sandpaper is holding that from being able to move. So let's cut this last piece. So now the question is, does this make a box? Let's find out. Let me drop this blade out of our way. And let's dispose of all of that. And if you want to check something real quick, this is a nice little setup. So now I put one. Well, it's hard to pick it up and show it to you, but that's about as tight as I think you could make one of these things without any problem. Is that one turned around? You know what? I cut that one on the wrong way. So I should have cut it here, but it still lines up. I just don't quite have the... So anyway, it's a nice clean corner. As you can see, it only took a minute to do these. If you keep it straight and don't do it in front of a camera, you can do it without making a mistake. But you can see you can cut 4 sides of a box pretty quick and easy. Pre-cut them, put them in there. And the important thing that you find out is that even after you've done the cut, these things are perfectly aligned to each. That one's hard to tell. These things are still, if you cut them to one length and you have these 2 different lengths and you pass them through, these 2 will still be identical lengths when you're done. If you have any kind of issue with it, just take it over and shoot it on the oscillating belt sander, and then I have no problem. So, but that gives me a nice, clean, crisp corner on there. It's hard to see it, but it gives me a nice, clean, crisp corner on there. As long as everything is square, you're going to get a nice clean miter. But that's an easy way to make 4 sides of a box using the baby donkey's ear. The other thing I want to show you real quick is, let's set it up for the miter, for the Incra gauge. So, okay. So we're going to pretend to use the stop. We need a 1, and we're going to need 1 dowel. Put my dowel in. Now, to use this, I'm going to extend this out over this way rather than behind, so I can have this touch directly to here. So now, whoops, don't need to tighten it quite yet. So let's open this up to 0. Whoop. You know what? I should probably 0 this out, shouldn't I? Let's do that. So I'm just touching the blade, and I'm snugging this down. This is now set to my 0.0. So now I can bring this up against the fence gently, just so it's touching. Make sure it's parallel pretty well, and tighten my 1 clamp down. And now this is now set, and this is now set to hold this in place. So if I move this back to 4 inches, like so, and just slide this back till it touches, and I now have I now have 4 inches. Yep, I'm right at 4 inches now on my cut. So you can use this in conjunction with this block as well as these stop blocks if you want to use it for a stop block. This would be very good setup if I wanted to cut a tenon on here. I would set it to 0, set this on there, and then set this to 1/4 inch, make my cut, flip it, make my cut. Then I would come in, make my shoulder cut, and then I have my tenon on there. And the same thing to make the other part of the tenon is when I do that, then I reset this so that I take out the 1/4 inch in the middle. And you can do that accurately with this jig if that's what you want to do. So you can cut miters using this. The other way, if you really want to be exact, you could also use this. If you remember, this is the miter or the caliper. So if I take this and put this on here, and let's do this. So if I take this and let's put this back to 0. And now, if I bring this up and load it, now I can take and 0 this out, like so. Now I can move this using my dial caliper and move this thousandths of an inch at a time in order to readjust for my cuts as I'm making cuts. So I can set this up in an instant, move this to the exact distance I want, put this back in there. If I know the dimensions that I want, I can do it just as accurate with this or with the Incra jig to make this adjustment to do this or just to do very fine cuts. So this is really very handy to have on here. I am very happy. Wow, this will take a long time. I'm very happy with the way this kind of went. And I think that I'm going to be using this a lot. Most of the time, I'll just use a simple stop block. And again, most of the time, I'm setting right here in the same position. But this thing can be moved around just like everything else on this system. Things can be attached and taken out real quickly. And my little baby donkey's ear is just one more piece that I can lock on here and actually take advantage of to do some 45 cuts quick and easy without having to recalibrate my saw blade constantly to do it. So most of the cuts I do is a 45. This is a good size, like I said, 4 3/4, 4 3/4, and build it from there. Make sure it's perfectly square in every direction when you're done. Plane it and sand it down till it is, and once it goes on there nice and easy, you can make it work real well. And you can make it whatever size you want. That's what size I made. I may make this a little bigger. And the other thing I may be doing with this is I think I'm going to punch 4 holes in here, probably 1/2 inch holes, maybe 1/4 inch, on all 4 sides. That'll be symmetrical so that I can set pieces on here. And I may even put, if you notice when it sets here, I have this area up here or here that I can use. So I can put maybe pinholes in there and be able to put something on here that be some kind of flip stop if I want. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. If I make it a little taller, might be able to do even more with it. But for making small boxes, I could cut comfortably on here with something up to 8 or 10 inches even long, comfortably at a 45. I wouldn't cut anything really wide or really long. That's when you get out the regular donkey's ear. But on most of the stuff that I do cut up, it's usually pretty small to begin with. And this is the perfect thing. So, baby donkey's ear. I hope you like this. It's a nice addition to my miter jig. I'm going to, I think I'm going to work on a box joint jig. I think you're going to like it. It's also going to be different than anything you've ever seen. Just like a donkey's ear. I don't think you see anybody out there with that. So, if you like this video, or any comments or any ideas, suggestions, any suggestions of what we can make to attach to this, because I also think I've been thinking hard about some kind of circle cutting jig that I can put on here. This already, I didn't realize it, but it does two things. I can do 10-inch with it, and I can do miters. So that's going to be a nice addition. The box joint jig is coming, and I think I'm going to make it be able to be a variable type. So what I'm doing is going to be different than anything you've ever seen. So stay tuned. If you have any ideas or suggestions or any new attachments, leave it down below. I do read everything. If you learned something here, you like this video, hit that like button. It lets me know that I'm doing something right. But most importantly, though, please come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. And we'll see you guys again very soon.